In this tutorial, I'll show you how you can create a scatter plot, which compares two quantitative variables. I will also show you how you can create a scatter plot that compares two quantitative variables, then also colorizes or uses a different point character for a categorical variable. In this tutorial, I'll be using the PUMS 2023 housing record data. To get started, let's look at the raw data. So the two variables that I'd like to use in this example are number of persons in the household and household income. To get started, I'm just going to copy the column of number of persons and add it to a new worksheet. Then I'm going to go back and do the same thing for the household income data. If I can't find it, I can do Control F, and I know that it starts with HIN. So I can use the find and replace function, and I can go right to the function or column that I want instead of scrolling and trying to find it. I'm going to copy this column and put it into my sheet 1. This just minimizes what I need to look at when I'm creating my scatter plot. All right, to create the scatter plot, highlight your two columns. The X or horizontal axis has to be the first column of the scatter plot. The Y or vertical axis has to be the second column. From here, I'll go up to Insert. Under Insert, I'll choose Scatter, and I'll choose the first scatter plot. Right away, my scatter plot is created. This looks pretty good, except now I need to add a title and add two axis titles. I can go to Add Chart Element and go to Axis Titles, add a primary horizontal axis, and also add a primary vertical axis. Now I can start to add in my details. To add in a chart title, I highlight the original title and I start to make something more descriptive. Once I add in my chart title, I can also add in my axis titles. And I'm going to want to do it for the horizontal axis and the vertical axis. I need to make sure that I put in units if it makes sense for my particular variable. All right, now looking at this, there's a couple things that I can do to make the data ink ratio go up. First, I can highlight the grids and I can just delete them. So highlighting them, selecting them, and pressing delete on my computer will get rid of those. I can also add different color elements if I want to. So I can change the colors up here, maybe from blue to, let's say, a nice eggplant color. Anything that you'd like. I can also change the characteristic or the marker. So over here, if I have this series up, I can click marker, marker options, and I can choose something other than the built-in. I can maybe change this to a triangle or maybe to something else that I think is appealing. And this is how we can create a scatter plot in Excel. Now, if you want to stick around, I'll show you how you can add a categorical variable to this plot by adding color for each different category. So the categorical variable I'm going to choose is access to the internet. This is here at the beginning of our data set. I'm going to copy this column and add it to my original sheet of data that I used to create my scatter plot. Now, in order for me to create another scatter plot with different colorizations, just like we see here in this example, based upon the different internet access statuses, I'm going to need to create 3 different sets of columns of data for the 3 different kinds of access to the internet. So here we could call this NP1 and HINCP1. What that means is essentially I am making a set of columns just for access to the internet when it's equal to 1. I'm going to do it for 2 and 3 as well. Because of the way that I've set this up by putting the 1 behind the name, once I drag over the names, highlighting both of them at the time, it will actually just fill in 2 and 3. Excel recognizes that that's what I'd like to do when I have a number at the end of my name. So now I'm going to use the filter function. So equals starts off a function, filter is what I'll use, and I'm going to select my entire NP array, and I want it to basically give me this information when access to the internet is equal to 1. And what it'll do is it'll just fill in all the values from number of persons when access to the internet is equal to 1. Now I'm going to do the same thing for the second column. So again, equals filter. This time I want the household income, but I still want when C is equal to 1. And notice I'm grabbing the entire column, and that's why it says C to C separated with a colon. Now I'm going to do the same thing for access to the internet equal to 2. So filter again, choosing the NP array, and access to the internet this time equal to 2. And now I'll do the same thing for household income when access to the internet is equal to 2. So filter, again, I'm going to add my column for household income, separate with a comma, use C equal to 2. Now I'm going to do it a little bit faster for the last category, 3, just making sure that my C column is equal to 3 each time. And there we have it. We have our 3 separate groups of when we have access to the internet equal to 1, access to the internet equal to 2, and access to the internet equal to 3. Now to create a scatter plot with these 3, we're going to use different series. So I'm going to highlight the first 2 columns, go up to insert, and just create my first scatter plot. Now, this looks a lot like the one we have here, but it only includes those who have access to the internet and are paying for it. If I want to change the name up here, it'll change the overall title. So I'm going to say yes and separate it with a comma and say, pay a provider. Now, in order to add the additional categories for my access to the internet variable, I need to go up to chart design. Under chart design, I'll select the additional data. Notice that I have a series called Yes Pay. I'm going to add 2 additional series. The first time, I'm going to just add the name of the column of my Y variable. Then if I want to add my X values, I'm going to put in equals, and then I'm going to select all the values in X. Now I can scroll down and do it this way, but this is not the most efficient way to do it. So I'll show you how you can do this a better way when we access the Y variable. So to get the Y values, I'm going to scroll all the way up to the top again, and I'm going to select my first cell. And if you're on a Mac, you can do Command Shift. If you're on a PC, Control Shift. Using that down arrow will select all the data in each column. Press OK. Now, if I scroll up or press OK and I scroll up, I can see my plot now, and I can see that it is a different colorization for my new points. My last task is to go up to select data again and add my final series. So this time I'm going to use the name of the third column. I'm going to select all of the data in the column for number of persons for when access to the internet is equal to 3. I can click Control Shift down and it will select all of my data. Now I need to go down and do the same thing for Y. So we have my equals. Scrolling all the way back up to the top, I'm going to select my first cell, Control Shift down, and I have all of my data there as well. So now I have OK, and I have these 3 series. Pressing OK, I can scroll back up to the top and I'll be able to see my 3 different series on my plot. If I want to change a couple of the names up at the top, now I can just say yes, they have access to the internet. That's the outcome for option 2 and access the internet. And I'll say, but they don't pay for it. So yes, no pay. And then finally, no access is this third option. Now, the reason why I did that is so when I add the legend, the names of the different categories will come up. So I've added the legend, and now I can see what the different colorizations mean in terms of access to the internet. Now, my last step is to add a chart title and my primary horizontal and vertical axes. So I can add my chart title and my horizontal and primary vertical axis. Now I can add in the names of these similarly to how I've done in previous examples. So now I have my new title, Household Income by Number of People in House and Access to the Internet in Oregon in 2023. I also have my horizontal axis, number of people in household, and household income in US dollars for my vertical axis. We also have our legend over here, which tells us the different colorizations. If at any time I want to change these colorizations, I can go back up to select data and I can remove some of the other series so I can look at just what one of the point characters looks like. If I select any of these over here on Format Data Series, Marker will come up and I can select that, go under Marker Options, and change the built-in. Instead of having a circle, maybe here I would prefer a triangle. And maybe instead of having that dark green, I can instead do a solid fill with orange. Or just change the color if it's something I like. If I want to change the border so it matches, I can also go to solid line border and it will change it to that brighter yellow. I can bring back the other data by going back up to select data and just selecting the additional series, pressing OK. Hopefully this video better helped you understand how to create a scatter plot and a scatter plot with an additional categorical variable.